hopefully this is set up right. It's been a minute since I made one of these videos, so I'm gonna take my time, just go through everything. Try to keep the video short actually. I'm just gonna skim through all of my stuff and explain the method to my madness here. I'm gonna start with the base race, which of course they're Nords. They're they're hairy, bulky, they're just big as hell. And that's what I chose to go with for my skin and my mesh. It's of course SOS. The texture is a blendature of Sunderkind, favorite souls, and other things. But in the end result is this is basically what I wanted. Also, the body that I'm using is a full HDT body, which means the chest, butt, legs, stomach, everything on the dude moves. If you look closely at the model, even his hair has HDT physics, and these, of course, the default hairs. So yeah, good stuff. All right, I'm gonna quickly go through the other races. Okay, there's my Oregonian. He's very tiny, super short, slightly bigger head. His hands are slightly bigger too. It's just an aesthetic thing for me. I want them to look like little lizards. Then my Breton race. Stance is very wide, very action oriented. This is actually an Oriental race. This preset kind of sucks because it doesn't really show off the tweaks that I made to the race itself. But these usually if I want to make like an Asian character, this is where I go for my base. Texture wise, he's not very hairy. He's not super muscular. Ages are lean, but they're not strafed. So I chose to go with this you know, smoother aesthetic. Next up is Dark Elf. I don't know anything about Dark Elves. I'm not like big on like D&D and Skyrim and all that stuff, so I don't know like lore in depth. But I do see the word elf on his name, so I just assume he'd be tiny. So I just made him, short. He's very small and hairless. Of course, high elf. I assume the high elves are super tall, so I'm not sure if you can tell from this angle here, but he's the tallest of the races. He's just huge. He's very long, slim. He's got a certain look to him. Also, he's still an elf, so if you look at his skin, you can tell he's very smooth too. He's not fuzzy like you know, like the hairier races. Speaking of the Nords, of course. Next up is the Imperials. Imperials are buff. They're all huge, man. They're not super hairy, but they have a little bit of hair on them or whatever. They're very strafed, very veined, very vascular in build, wide shoulders. They're height wise, they're slightly taller than average height. And that's just what I chose because I usually use the Imperials to make like Conan and stuff like that when I want to like cosplay something cool. Okay, next up is Khajiit. This is a Khajiit male. It is so hard to see from this angle. I apologize. I can't zoom out any further than this. But the Khajiits have a very special build to their body. They have super wide shoulders, very slim. Actually, I'm gonna tap square here. There we go. Khajiits are very wide in the shoulders, very slim waist. They have a super fast, strong build to them. Of course, it's digitigrade, or they have a special type of feet that the humanoid characters don't have. They look like giant cats, which is what I was aiming for. I don't want like a mutated or just a slightly altered human. So that's the end result there with the Khajiit. All right, let's move along. I already did the Nord. Nords are wide, big. They're tall, hardy, hairy. Okay, here's my orc. My orcs are, of course, they're hairy. These orcs' builds mimic the Warcraft movie. I think those giant, scary-looking orcs from Warcraft are like perfect, dude. So I mimic them to the best of my ability. Orcs, height-wise, orcs are super tall. They're taller than the Nords, but they're not as tall as the high elves. It's super noticeable. Um, Very comparable to the movie. They have the widest frame in the game too, naturally. Next up is red guards. These are my black people. Like, I don't know, really, there's not much to say. Black people are very lean, very athletic in build, slightly taller. He's just got a fast, strong, thin look to him. And of course, they're not super hairy either. Genetically, they're blessed, so very beautiful looking race. Let me stop. All right, I'm gonna move along here. All right, what else? Again, I don't know much about like elves and D&D and all that stuff, so I did the best I could. I saw the word elf in his name, so I just made him tiny. That's when I hear that word like elf and stuff, I think like Zelda or a Link from Zelda. So I just made him small in stature like this. Even though fun fact, Link from Legend of Zelda is actually a kid. That's why he's so tiny. It has nothing to do with him being an elf. Most people don't know that, but yeah, he's actually a little teenager. Actual elves are like super tall. And then this is for someone who hit me up on DeviantArt. They wanted to know like the how far I've gone along with this Bagzerk retexture project. As you can see, it's complete. This is my guts. I replaced all the textures. His lips are hyper realistic. His skin, you can see the pores and pock marks in his skin. His eyes have been replaced. They're photorealistic eyes. They're a deep brown. His eyebrows have been refined. Everything has been like tweaked from scratch. His skin is a mixture of like Sundricon, favorite souls, and etc. He's got 3 different skins caked on top of each other to get that vascularity and build that I want. This skin is very smooth. It literally has no issues. And as you can see, Guts looks very realistic in the world space now, which is, that was my goal. Alright, I'm gonna move over here. I'm pretty sure I just went through all of the base races here, with the exception to that Bagzerk. Guts. Okay, we're gonna go through the females. I'm not sure why her hair looks like that. All of these mods, man. Oh, these have physics too? Well, I guess my default hairs have physics on them too. Oh yeah, I did say that earlier. I didn't know it was for the females too. Or specifically white hairs. So here's my Nord. My Nord females are like the basic. They're like actually they're tall. They're slightly taller than most. Their skin is slightly pale. Because they live in the cold, so they should be paler, right? They're not like super thick, but they're very tall and slightly curvy. Alright, I'm gonna move along here. Next up is my Argonians. You'll notice reflexively that my Argonians have different clothing. Their attire, or rather, there's a mod in here that gives me basically different clothes for each race, and I took advantage of that for the females. Argonians are short, just like the male. They're very short, and their legs are slightly. I modified the legs a little bit to be a little more lizard-like, and that's the end result. Okay, next up, I don't like having to change this hair over and over. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with 7. Okay, so R2 7 times. So here's my Bretons. My Bretons are slightly shorter. They're not very muscular in build. The female Breton specifically, she's my Asian race. So her body ranges from like super flat to incredibly busty. I'm basically poking fun at like anime and stuff like that. Japanese people are kind of ridiculous with their media. But yeah, she's slightly shorter than the average race. Dark elf. Again, you hear the word elf. The first thing I think is 5, 6, 7 is super short. Actually, I like this hair. Yeah, but when you hear elf, you think super short. So the females, the same with the females as with the males. My female dark elves are very tiny, very small in stature. Still very beautiful. I of course put the best skin I could find on them, and I also found a something that fixes the elf or the elven mesh to make them not so angular and jagged and witch like in the face. And the end result is that it's fairly attractive looking dark elf. Here's my high elf. Again, I'm not like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm not like some super lore nut or anything like that. I don't really, know these characters inside and out, lore wise. So I just did the best that I could. High elves, of course, are super tall. The female high elves specifically are very beautiful. They're strikingly attractive. Just the smoothest features imaginable on their faces and their bodies. Of course, they're super curvy. I'm guessing elves are supposed to be like the peak of attractiveness with whatever sex. So that's what I chose to do with the high elves. Make them tall and really attractive. They still have yellow skin though, oddly enough, which I correlate with jaundice, of course. Alright, so here's the next one. I think this is Imperial. And my Imperials they're actually pretty straight. If you look at her arms, she's got veins on her arms. She's not like super like curvy. Her chest is slightly smaller than everyone else's. She's actually not very tall either. Her height is about average, maybe a little shorter. And for her body though, the cool thing about her body is her arms get really thick. Because again, my Imperials are usually my buff characters. So the same applies to my females. My females can get pretty rough looking, or they can, tone down to looking skinny like this. Which I got the idea from 300, which is a movie I like. I like the women in 300. They remind me of Imperials. So here's my Khajiit. Pretty much explains itself. The Khajiits they're not short. They're slightly taller than normal people. I tweaked the legs a little bit to make the legs more cat-like. Thighs are a little bigger. There's other things that I tweaked on it too, anatomically that I can't really cover. But yeah, it's my Khajiits. They look like giant cats, and of course the feet are digitigrade. All right, next up is Orc. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, it's an awful hair. Orcs do not look right with these hairs, dude. Oh, never mind. Okay, so here's my orc. My orc females are big as hell. They're bigger than Nord men. They're very big, ferocious. They're scary, dude. When you see them in game, it's pretty staggering too. Just the size comparison. If you look at the orc's arms alone, Jesus Christ, like these are some big women. And I don't know, just a personal aesthetic I chose to go with. And then again, taking homage from the Warcraft movie. Just I think orc women should be huge and intimidating. Be like the worst snoo ever. All right, next is the red guards. The red guards, of course, my black women. 5, 6, 7. I don't like that hair, but whatever. Okay. Red guards are the black girls. They're average. They're average height, average build. Actually, the hips are slightly bigger on them. It ranges depending on their weight. They can get like a big chest, or they can get a big butt. And they're pretty all around physically. Skin is very beautiful, very smooth, very cocoa buttered. And yeah, that's my black women. They're all baddies. And then the last one is the wood elf. Wood elves are very tiny, just like the 4, 5, 6, 7. Whoa, what's going on there? Okay, so the wood elves are very tiny, just like the males. They're I hear the word elf and I think little, so I made them very small, but they're beautiful. They're so pretty, they glow, dude. And thick, of course. They have a very a curvy, impossible to get body for most women without surgery. And that's the aim I was going for there. They look kind of like kids too. The elves in general, they have bigger heads and bigger hands. They look like children staturally. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, because of the Bagzerk thing that I mentioned earlier. Let's get her brows fixed here. I'm going to carry on with the Bagzerk, try to top this off. Here's my Casca. Casca's got photorealistic eyes. Her lips have been replaced. The tint masks are hyper realistic. Her skin has been completely redone to be realistic. Pock marks, blemishes, etc. Her hair texture was awful. I replaced that too with something real. And her body, I believe her body type is the red guard. I think that body type is just perfect for her. But yeah, this is my Casca. This is what she looks like in game. It's pretty good turnout. I'm going to do these last two here, which I think are the witches. Yeah, I know there's a lot here. Crap, I didn't show that Griffith. Okay, here's Farnese, or Lady Farnese. This is my retexture of her. Her hair, she has real hair. Her eyes have been replaced with photorealistic eyes. Her brows have been removed because she uses the default assets. Her lips, of course, are super realistic. I replaced the tint masks. And her body type, I think her body type is Imperial. I just think Imperial fits her at 0 weight. Witch of the Forest. This one was super interesting for me to work on. I had the toughest time trying to get her to translate properly, into the real world. But I pulled it off. I replaced her eyes with photos. I used photos of children eyes to replace her texture. So I guess it's photorealistic. Her brows have been completely replaced too with something more realistic. Her hair texture was awful, so I put something more realistic for her hair texture instead of the whatever was ripped. If you look closely at her skin, you can see the blemishes. She has marks on her skin. Just everything has been overhauled to look or blend with the real world. And I have to say, overall, it turned out pretty good. And I have no idea what her body type is. I want to say her body type is Imperial, but I'm not sure, so don't hold me to it. So that's all of the females for the Bagzerk. I made a mistake and I actually missed a character, I think, which was Griffith. And he should be the White Hawk. So here's my last one, and this is Griffith. I do not remember what body size he usually has, but here's my Griffith. This is the last one. He's been completely retextured. He has the most realistic textures I could get on him. Of course, I removed some of the vascularity and of course the strapes from his skin to make him less muscular. I had to adjust his neck via NIF scope in order to not have a giant gap between the neck and the body. And of course, I also did a few tricks with the texture to get it to properly, blend together. I feel like this is a good size for his body. For his face, I replaced his eyes. Griffith has slits for his pupils, so I just put snake textures over his eyes, and for some weird reason it looks perfect. His lips, I of course replaced the tint mask with something real. His skin is so bright and so pale you can barely tell, but his skin is hyper realistic too. I went in and put everything that's needed as far as the normal maps and texture. And of course his hair texture by default wasn't great, so I went and put something more realistic. Griffith, it's safe to say he blends with the world so well. This light is really good. It really shows it off, but he blends pretty well. That's all of my characters for my Bagzerk and my general races. Someone hit me up on DeviantArt and they just asked me about it, and there's the answer to your question. It's I didn't trash it. It's still ongoing, and it's beautiful. All right, have a good one.